But I talked about physics. Let me talk about chemistry. Now, again, I think the classes that you are in, you have heard of the phenomenon called photosynthesis. And you have also been probably told the equation for photosynthesis. I think it is something like 6H2O plus 6CO2 is equal to C6H12O6 plus 6O2. So we say from the water and the carbon dioxide with light, we are able to get glucose and oxygen. The chemical equation is fine. But if you take a bottle of soda from your fridge and shine light on it, it has carbon dioxide, it has H2O, you're shining light on it, it will not turn to Sprite or Fanta or anything. It will remain like that. To turn to glucose, something more is required, and that is biology. So photosynthesis is more than the chemical equation. Chemical equation is very nice, 6CO2, 6O2. You take out a soda water bottle, put up light on that, the carbon dioxide does not turn into glucose. To turn it into glucose, you need a biological phenomenon called photosynthesis. So what I wanted to really share with you is this excitement about biology. And so far, most of biology that you've been taught is descriptive. Mostly what we do in biology today is still taxonomy. So if you're doing zoology, you're told vertebrates and invertebrates. If you're doing botany, you're told gymnosperms and angiosperms. But we are now talking functional. And this is where things really become interesting. When you start looking at not just the description, going beyond description, a bit into structure, and then into function, and then you try to explain the function, you find out that many interesting things are happening. And just to shortcut this, to give you the answer, so photosynthesis is a quantum phenomenon. I told you that merely shining light on this doesn't happen. It has to go through all those various elements which are in a leaf or a green plant or whatever, where the actual transformation of the chemical reaction happens. Another very important thing that happens, even when we look at, so one of the first things about biology really is life. So the way when we, if you remember very early, we went to what is the distinction between living things and non-living things. And as you look at it, the first distinction that you see, you find that very soon they are not right. So if you say that living things move, then there can be non-living things also which move. The car moves, the train moves, the aeroplane actually even flies, and so on and so forth. So you find that this becomes a very interesting thing. And this question has been asked for a long time, hundreds of years. And we're talking in terms of biological sense. So I will just give you the names of some of the people who have talked about it. Those of you who are Google-oriented can Google for. One of the first lectures which I heard was from George Wald. He was a Nobel Prize winner in medicine. And I heard a lecture from him in terms of life as we know it. And he was talking about life as we know it on Earth, but could there be other forms of life? And those of you, I'm sure many of you children are curious, you've been following the mission to Mars and the Perseverance and so on. One of the things they're looking for is origin of life in Mars. And this field is called astrobiology. What I wanted to share with you is that don't think of biology as only for medical things and becoming a doctor. I think in common parlance in school, it is called what, medical stream and non-medical stream. So those who study biology are called medical stream. Those who study biology, no, biology is way, way beyond medical. Medical is just one aspect of biology. Just like, or many other sciences also, even in physics, being a computer engineer is one aspect of physics. There are so many other aspects where physicists also work. Similarly, biology, there's so many other, and now it is growing more and more. So one of the very important aspects which I wanted to kind of draw attention to is this thing. So when we look at life, so George Wald is one of the first ones. That J.B.S. Halden was a geneticist who actually came to India, left England, was there in Jadavpur University and so on. He's also very well known. He also wrote a book on life, but he was looking more at the origin of life. You see, the first thing which is wonderful is that can life come out of non-living stuff? Now, many of us with a religious disposition and such things are told that life form is something very special given by God and then given away and then taken away and so on. Scientists say none of the sort. Life manifests itself when certain conditions are fulfilled, and death occurs when certain other conditions are fulfilled. It is not Yamaraj coming in as Bhaisa and taking you away. All that is stories. It is actually complex organismal things. And this is what people are trying to understand: life, aging, and death. And that is why I said biology is most important, because there's nothing else. You have your body to know about. If you study physics, you study about electron and proton and neutron, and where are you going to meet the proton and where are you going to meet the neutron. But biology, you are living with every day and night. And therefore, it is very important. See, I seriously feel that instead of maths being compulsory, it is biology which should be compulsory. What kind of a person are you if you have no idea about how your heart works, your liver works, your lungs work, your kidneys work, your brain works? Everything coming from your brain eventually. And if you have no idea of what your brain is like, the cortex and the hippocampus and this thing, then what is the use of knowing Pythagoras theorem and differential of dy by dx e equal x is e to power x if you don't know about your own body? And so what we are talking about, Haldane wrote this book and he was talking more about, in fact, this is a special name called abiogenesis. Abiogenesis is a special name for the mechanisms which get you life out of non-life. Evolution then talks about how these things improve. So Darwin's theory of evolution is all about how these things improve and the survival of the fittest and the improvement by evolution. But the first form is abiogenesis. But then there is a very famous book by a physicist, Erwin Schrödinger, in 1944 called What is Life? Now, the problem for physicists, the mystery is, the sort of remarkable thing about life is that everything that they study is really usually dead. And so they wonder, what is life? And there is a famous law in physics called the Second Law of Thermodynamics, which says that the disorder always increases. So if you leave anything, disorder will increase. This said that entropy will increase. Entropy is a measure of the disorder, but life defies that. Life is an ordered system. Inside our body, everything is ordered. And we do this thing, which is opposite of what physics says. Physics in a physics system doesn't just go and that's why if you heat something, it will cool and gradually cool till it becomes at the ambient temperature. But our body temperatures are maintained at 36 degrees. Even though the external temperature may be 2 degrees, 4 degrees, 20 degrees, 40 degrees, but our temperature is maintained. This is called homeostasis. In physics, this doesn't happen. In physics, things move from a high temperature to a low temperature continuously. So this is where Schrödinger was very intrigued. That how is this happen? And also, the other important part of what life is that life replicates itself. Now, in physics, when you can have nuclear fusion, that a radioactive thing can break into two, etc., but it doesn't make an exact copy of itself. So this idea of replication was really enormous. I mean, Schrödinger really was, he imagined that there is some non-crystalline, non-periodic thing in which all the information is stored, which makes copies of us and so on. You all know, we all began with a single cell. And now we are 40 trillion cells or whatever, by continuous growth of cells, multiplication, division of cells, and so on and so forth. How is this maintained? And this is what Schrödinger was there. And he postulated something like, he didn't use the word genes, but he postulated something like genes over there. In fact, Crick and Watson, when they discovered the structure of the DNA as the double helix, acknowledged that they were inspired by Schrödinger's book, where he said there is something. Now, everybody is talking about coding, to make apps. Coding is most important in biology. We are coded people, coded by the DNA, the RNA, and the proteins and everything that is going on. And this is why it is very interesting. But we didn't understand that. So it was only in the 50s when Crick and Watson discovered the structure of the DNA and found that it is a double helix of base pairs called A, T, C, G, adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine. And adenine is always connected to thymine, cytosine is always connected to guanine, and so on. And again, there's no fight. They could do this because Physics has provided them with X-rays and X-ray crystallography, and they can see the X-ray pattern of the DNA molecules, and from interpreting that X-ray pattern, they came to this thing. So it's not a fight between physics versus biology, but it is just that biology is more complex and needs a higher order this thing.